In this video, I'll be showing you exactly how you need to train to get a physique like Zoro's from One Piece. I'll also teach you why training like Zoro may not be the best idea to become the greatest swordsman. And stick around to the end for some quick nutritional tips to help you on your path to achieving this physique. My name's Devin Action Ricker, and I'm a personal trainer and strength coach, and this is the Zoro Training Guide. So first up, let's see what we're working with here. Zoro has an amazing physique, especially post time skip. He's listed at 5'11" and 187 pounds, which means he's muscular yet very lean. If we look at his physique, some of his best qualities include his chest. He's got a really nice full chest, he's got that lower chest and that upper shelf. On top of this, you know he has to have massive shoulders. To be able to wield swords like the greatest swordsman, you have to have really good arms and shoulders. And of course he has really good jaw muscles as well, but that's not gonna be a part of this training program. Add that in on your own time. And then finally, he has a really good core, which we can see because he's lean and ripped. So let's talk about Zoro's training and why it may not be the best idea to become the greatest swordsman, or to even have a physique like his. So of course this is a manga and an anime, so the training is hyperbole, even the physiques are hyperbole. But if you do this exact kind of training in real life, it's not gonna produce that same physique. So for instance, in some of his training, we can see him doing a squat with an overhead press. This is a movement that sometimes you'll see Olympic weightlifters doing, and it's a really difficult movement. This movement would be pretty good for core stabilization and shoulder growth. But there are probably better ways to do this, especially if you're not an Olympic weightlifter. Another one that he does is one-arm barbell curls. In real life, this is a one-way trip to tearing a bicep. I wouldn't recommend this. If you're gonna do one-arm curls, do it with dumbbells. You also see him doing squat jumps with a barbell. Now, when I used to work with a college weightlifting team, we would do squat jumps with a barbell, but it would be straight up and straight down, and usually it was with very light weight. You could see here that Zoro is moving forward with that weight. So the weight is actually carrying his momentum forward, and all that pressure would be going straight into his knees. Now, I'm a big proponent of going full depth on squats and having the knees go out over the toes, all that sort of stuff. I think that's more beneficial for your knees than not doing it. However, this type of movement I think would be pretty darn bad for your knees, especially because you're not really stable. If you were gonna do a squat jump with a barbell, you would wanna go straight up and straight down. And you would wanna use lightweight, and this would be more for power development rather than strength or hypertrophy. Next up is the barbell handstand push-up. I mean, do I even need to describe why this is a dangerous movement? If anyone can actually do this in real life, I would actually be really impressed, but don't try it at home. And then finally, he does this movement that actually looks pretty badass. He takes the barbell with weights on it and starts swinging it like a sword. Now, why would that not be a good idea if you actually wanted to be a swordsman? Well, that's because gravity only points in one direction, and as you're swinging that weight, the weight is pulling your arms down, so you're actually having to hold it up to keep it from falling down. So you're using all of your muscles to hold the weight up. Even on the way down, you're holding it up. That's like an eccentric movement. So if you were an actual swordsman, you would want the force going in the opposite direction. So let's say you wanted to work on your strength and power in this movement, in a sword swinging movement. What you may do is get a stick or something similar, something that's very lightweight, and then attach a band to it, and then attach the band behind you, and then do the movement, and that way you're fighting against the gravity that's pulling the weight back this way, and you're pushing it down. Now, of course, I wouldn't really recommend that unless you're super into sword swinging movements. You could easily work those same muscle groups with some of the other exercises that I'm gonna incorporate into this training program. And it's a lot safer, and you're gonna have more hypertrophy in those muscles this way. Now, I know there's a lot more to Zoro's actual training, but these are just some of the highlights of what you might see him doing in the manga or anime. And I acknowledge they're totally badass, but they wouldn't be the best for real life training. So given that, let's get into what you should actually be doing to achieve a physique like his. So here's the training outline. We're gonna be training 4 days per week. And because he has such a well-developed upper body, that's where most of our focus in this training program is gonna be. So those 4 days are gonna be split into an upper push, an upper pull, a lower body day, just to kind of balance everything out, and then a full upper body day. And we're gonna use the RIR method, which stands for reps in reserve. I'll go into a little bit more detail into that later. Now, this is a little bit more of an advanced training method. If you're a beginner, I'll give you some other tips on how to do this. We'll also utilize drop sets as a unique training modality. And this is meant to be a 4 to 6 week program. Now, that doesn't mean you're gonna get his physique or even get close in that amount of time, but you're gonna be well on your way. And then from there, because of the principle of variation, you're gonna wanna change up the sets, reps, exercises. You just wanna have something a little bit different, but you can keep the format exactly the same. And I know this is a lot of information, so if you want all of this written down, I have a training guide linked below. And if you're enjoying this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Now let's jump into the routine. Day 1 is the upper push day. So with this day, we're gonna start with our big compound movement. The incline bench press will be our first exercise. This is really gonna help hit the shelf of the upper chest and target the shoulders and triceps. Whenever you're doing this, make sure you go all the way down, touch the upper chest, and then all the way up to a full lockout. Up next, we're going into dips. This is a really good tricep / lower chest exercise. Same thing on this, and with all these exercises, make sure you have a really good full range of motion. All the way down, all the way up. Next up, we're going dumbbell front raises. With this, you have multiple variations. You can either have your palms face down or your palms face up. I go somewhere in the middle and kind of touch the bottoms of the dumbbells like that. This is a really great exercise for the front delt. Up next, we're gonna go with cable flies. Make sure to get that really good stretch at the back. And then at the front, if you want to, you can actually cross your hands over for a really good squeeze. Next up, we have cable tricep pushdowns, another really good tricep exercise. And then we have the crunch machine. Doesn't matter which one you use, just pick one and stick with it. So that's day 1. Up next, we have day 2. This is your upper pull day. Here, we're gonna start with a big compound lift that's bent over rows. This is a really great lift for just hitting the bulk of your back. On top of this, it hits a little bit of the biceps as well. Make sure you have a good full range of motion on this as well. You should be touching the ground at the bottom, and then the weight should be close to your center of gravity the whole time, and then you come up and touch your belly and then go back down. Then we have dumbbell lateral raises for the shoulders. Then we'll go into lat pull down. Then one of my favorite bicep exercises, the dumbbell incline curls. This is a really good exercise to get a really deep stretch on that bicep. So this exercise should probably be a part of your routine no matter what if you want to grow your biceps. It's one of the best. And then we'll go into cable face pulls. This is really good for your rear delts and then your traps as well. So that concludes day 2. Now let's go into a little bit of lower body just to kind of balance out everything. With the lower body, we're going to keep it really simple. We're going to do squats. Make sure you get full depth, full range of motion. I prefer using a barbell. If you want to use dumbbells, you can do that as well. Do like a goblet squat. You could also do front squats, or you could do leg press. Anything that you need to do to substitute if you need to, feel free to do that. Then we're gonna go to dumbbell RDLs. You can also do these with a barbell if you'd like. This is a really good exercise for the posterior chain, the hamstrings, the glutes, and the back. Next up, simply leg extensions and leg curls. On the leg extensions, I actually recommend leaning back quite a bit. And on the leg curls, I recommend doing the opposite by leaning forward. This helps you stretch out the quads on the leg extensions and stretch out the hamstrings on the leg curls. And then we'll top this day off with decline reverse crunches. This is one of the most difficult ab exercises in my opinion, but I love it for hitting the lower abs. And then finally, day 4, we have our full upper body day, which is basically just gonna be a mix between the first 2 days. So we're gonna start with that incline bench, then we're gonna alternate and go to our back. So we're gonna go to bent over rows, then we're gonna go back to dips, then dumbbell incline curls, and we're gonna top that off with machine crunches. Now, if you wanna add in one of your shoulder exercises like dumbbell lateral raises or front raises, feel free to put that in here as well. And in case you were wondering, the primary muscles for wielding a katana would not only be the arms and shoulders, of course, but also the lats, pecs, teres major, and core, which we're hitting in this program. Now that you know the exercises, let's actually go over the sets and reps. So on each of these, we're gonna be doing 3 sets plus a drop set. And the drop set you're gonna do on all exercises, except maybe some of the big ones that you may not feel comfortable with, like squats or incline bench. And when you do this, you just wanna drop the weight down about 10 to 30%. And for the reps, you actually have free reign. As long as you're between about 5 and 30 reps, you should be fine. Now, I like to stick closer to that 5 rep range on the big exercises like squats and incline bench, and closer to the 20, 25, maybe even 30 range on the smaller muscle groups like the delts or the biceps or triceps. Now, that RIR method, reps in reserve, is based on how many reps you actually have whenever you're done with that set. How many extra reps with good technique do you have left in the tank? So let's say you decide to make this a 5-week program. What I would recommend doing is start that first week with 4 reps in reserve. That means you could actually bust out about 4 more reps on each exercise. Now, that first week is the hardest one to determine the actual weight for you. But like I said, as long as you're getting in that rep range and you're perceiving that you only have about 4 reps left, that actually works perfectly fine, because you take that weight and then the next week you'll just add on to it maybe 5 or 10 pounds. On that first week, let's say we're doing our incline bench press and we're trying to pick a really good weight, and we determine that 100 pounds is the perfect weight where you feel like you're getting a good pump and everything, but you have about 4 more reps left in the tank with good technique. Now remember, you could always probably bust out like 1 more and have really crappy technique, but I'm talking really good technique, 4 more reps until technical failure, not until absolute failure. So that first week you hit 100 pounds, the next week I would recommend recommend just adding on 5 or 10 pounds because naturally that should take you down to about 3 reps in reserve. Then the next week you would go down to like 2 reps in reserve, then 1 rep in reserve, and then that final week, which we call peak week, would be 0 reps in reserve, which means you're basically going right up to failure. Now make sure you do this in a safe way, especially on those big lifts like incline bench or squat. Make sure you're in a rack with the safety bar set at the right height for you, or you have a spotter or both. And if you still don't feel comfortable with that, feel free not to go all the way to failure, but to go to about 1 or 2 reps in reserve. And you'll still get pretty much all those same gains. All right, so as I promised, here are some quick nutritional tips to help you achieve a physique like Zoro's. First up is calorie count. This is the most important thing when you're trying to gain weight or lose weight. So the very first step is you have to determine, to look like Zoro, do you need to gain weight or do you need to lose weight? Depending on that, you're either gonna have a hypercaloric diet or a hypocaloric diet. A hypercaloric diet would mean that you're eating more than you're burning, so you're gaining weight. A hypocaloric diet would mean that you're burning more than you're intaking, so you're actually losing weight. So that's the first step. The second step is you wanna have the right amount of protein. And I recommend just keeping it really, really simple. I'm sure you've heard this before. About 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day is about the right place to start. So that means if you weigh 200 pounds, you're gonna wanna have about 200 grams of protein. And of course, as you lose weight or gain weight, you'll wanna adjust those numbers. The next thing that you'll wanna focus on are your carbs. Your carbs are your primary source of energy. These come in the form of like complex carbs like oats and wheats and things like that, or simple sugars like Gatorade and candy. You'll mostly wanna stick to your complex carbs and have them around the workout window. Now, right after, it's totally fine to have simple sugars like Gatorade, things like that. But mostly on the days that you don't work out, you'll want to have complex carbs, and it's probably a good idea to have them more towards the beginning of the day. And then finally, your fat, you can have those just frequently throughout the day, and they're really good for proper hormonal regulation. But the most important thing is that these 3 macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, all add up to the calories that you need. And by the way, determining your calories isn't too difficult. If you want to maintain your weight, you'll simply take your body weight and then multiply it by about 13 to 15, somewhere around there. And then that's a general number of calories that you may want to have per day. Now, if you want to gain weight, you'll have more like the 16 to 18 times your body weight range. And then you could even go a little bit higher than that. If you want to lose weight, then multiply your body weight by about 10 to 12, and that will be your range in calories. And of course, you can go a little bit lower than that as well. The important thing with calorie tracking is that you just pick one of these general numbers and then track it for a couple of weeks. Make sure you're on track to hitting your goal. And then if you're not, then you can just adjust accordingly. So that concludes our Zoro training program. I wish you all the best on your journey to achieving a physique like the greatest swordsman. If you have any questions at all, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. You can also join our Discord linked in the description down below. And again, if you would like this in a written format, I have the guide linked in the description down below as well. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, go ahead and leave a bicep emoji in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.